So
Um,
yes, so tell me about the brand. I don't really know much about the Scattered Peaks as a winery and a brand.
so I don't know if you know Derek Benham. So he's the owner of Purple Wine Company.
Okay,
And so Purple Wine Company has a number of brands of their own. They make brands for other folks, whether it's Costco, Bevmo, whatever. So it's a pretty big company based in Sonoma County. And Derek used to own Blackstone and Mark West Springs.
for
So
sure. Hmm.
built up a Merlot brand, sold it, built up a Pinot brand, sold it. And so with Purple, he's got all of these other brands going, and most of them are pretty, good value brands. And so he's wanted to do something with a higher end Napa Cabernet. So they have been making Cabernet under other brands that might be $20 Napa Cabs, but they brought me in 2017 to do specifically Scattered Peaks to have an elevated Napa Cabernet brand. So 2017, the 15 vintage was aging and they didn't really have much input on that, but the 15 and 16 they already had in-house from existing contracts, and we bottled those up in the Napa bottling. So the two bottles I have here, this is, as you know, the Napa bottling, and that's roughly $40 a bottle. And then this is the small lot, which was just released March 1st as we did our COVID tour,
Yeah.
which is $125 a bottle. So that's really what they brought me in for, to source some pretty unique vineyards that could make a high-end Napa Valley Cabernet. And going forward, we're actually looking at doing single vineyard bottlings, which I've been pushing for, but they were a little hesitant to do to start with. So Scattered Peaks is named after Derek's, some of the things that he loves. He is a surfer, and apparently a term as the waves are coming in and they begin to break apart is called Scattered Peaks.
Oh,
And he's also a skier who does helicopter skiing. So he jumps out of helicopters to ski various mountain peaks. And part of the idea with Scattered Peaks was also to have Cabernet coming from a lot of mountain vineyards around Napa Valley. And I said, well, that's great. I can source those, but I spent pretty much all my career in Rutherford, and I know some killer vineyards there. So in addition to these mountain vineyards, let's bring in a little bit of Rutherford. So that's where Scattered Peaks, where the name came from, and Derek's involvement, which is different than all of the other brands under Purple. One of them is in Rutherford, Round Pond, which is right down the street from BV, where I spent most of my career.
oh yeah.
Um, there's Vineyard Tuffanelli,
Oh yeah.
and then sorry, I've gone
Okay.
blinded. Usabelli up in I've gone brain dead. It's not Pope Valley, it's Childs Valley. Sorry.
Oh, Charles Valley, sure.
Yeah, so yeah, and we used to get some fruit from Childs Valley when I was at BV that was like killer. So this it's like my favorite vineyard. So it's mountain vineyard. The Round Pond really gives the Rutherford appellation character, and people when they taste this, they go, "Well, I can really tell the Rutherford's in there." I'm like, "Yeah, it's 20%, so maybe not." But so it's sourced from various parts of Napa Valley, kind of like when I was at BV, what we did for our Napa Cabernet, where we wanted a wine that would show, this is Napa, but not be distinctly Hell Mountain or, from a cooler climate region down in Carneros or Mount Veeder. So to me, it's like the best of all of Napa Valley. And, I like the philosophy that Derek agrees with on the wines that we're making. They're wines that are in a modern style, but they definitely are not the, over the top ripe, easy to drink day one wines. We built them to age, making them drinkable upon release. And I've got to say the small lot is it's a little bit tight these days, but
Yeah.
later this summer it will have a year in bottle. And for what I've done with higher end Napa Valley cabs in the style that I like to make, they need about a year in the bottle before they really come around. So anyway, I like that he's not just looking for scores to get something that's really plush and falls apart soon after bottling. So they're wines that are kind of like what we did 20 years ago, BV, that have a lot of
Yeah.
staying power. And I've always said for great wine regions, your red wines need to show the test of time. So trying to do that fine balance between drinkability today and ageability.
Ageability, yeah. And so to go back for a second to the fruit sourcing, so you said it changes year to year. Does it change year to year for all of the fruit, or is there some of it that is under contract, or is it just each year what you can source and you have to sort of put the jigsaw puzzle together anew each year and what you're going to use in it?
Well, we're kind of lucky in that they source hundreds of tons from multiple vineyards, and Scattered Peaks has first priority for selection of the wine after it's fermented between all of their other brands. Their other brands are much bigger,
Oh, I
but they're
see.
also at a lower price point. So it's the best use of the higher end fruit. So Round Pond was brought in specifically for this program. Usabelli was already there. Some of the other vineyards, I haven't even visited all of them, but they have multiple sources that we can select after it's fermented what we want to use. So I worked with Joe Taparo, who's the day-to-day winemaker at Purple. He works with all of the brands. I just work with Scattered Peaks. So there's lots of fruit to choose from to make this. This vintage, I think, is 11,000 cases. So it's significant by a lot of Napa Valley standards, but pretty small by their standards. So it's, we're able to change it around every year depending on what we like. But definitely the Round Pond fruit acquisition was purchased specifically for Scattered Peaks, whereas the others already existed. So yeah, it's changes based on what we see at the end of vintage is doing the best for the style that we're looking for.
Yeah, I know. I hadn't. What you said, that was a good explanation. I didn't consider what you guys are actually doing. That they obviously already have a lot of fruit coming in, and you're going in and sort of essentially cherry picking what you want to make this wine with.
Yeah, and as I said, I wasn't involved with the winemaking in 15 and 16 because I didn't start until early in 2017. But with 2017, then I could work with them on, so the small lot I do at another winery in Napa Valley where I oversee every detail. But for the bulk of what we were expecting to go into the Napa here, worked with changing some of the winemaking techniques, bringing in different barrel selections. So 2017 is the third vintage, but it's the one that I really had the most involvement in, and that we're all really happy with. Not that we weren't pleased with 15 and 16, but I think it's more. It's got a little bit more of my signature on it, and I think great balance and ageability. So yeah, it was like kind of like the whole picture. I had a better idea of what vineyards had performed well in the past. So we sent those wines to the newer barrels that we bought.
Mhm.
So it's got all French oak, no American oak. Yeah, and
It is a super approachable wine. It's got a sort of softness to it, but then on the finish, those tannins show up, and it's got really nice acid. So I could see where it would age. I mean, it's quite refined for a $40 Napa Valley Cabernet.
oh, thanks. Yeah, that's when I was on the East Coast visiting everyone else. Most of them said, I taste Napa Valley Cabernets under $50, and I'm like typically not impressed at all. And I don't think it was just because we were there. They were like, wow, this is like a serious Cabernet that you typically don't see at this price point. So yeah, I'm thrilled to do that. That's 11,000 cases, whereas the small lot is 900 six-packs. So it's a big difference, but the small lot is something that, that's really why they brought me in, and Derek wanted to do something at a very, very high level. So I love doing both. And that's exactly what I've been trying to do. And it's a fine line to get it to be approachable and be ageable. So I think the combination of some of this stuff, we call it Child's Valley, but it's mountain fruit up there. That with the Rutherford Valley floor, you get the best of both worlds. I think you get great texture and some lushness from the Rutherford. It's not on the rockiest benchland, so it's got more flesh to it. And then the Child's Valley has a little bit more grip and more mountain fruit character. So it's that's what, like I said, I love making our Napa Cab at BV because I could get all sorts of different fruit with different characters to make a wine that was approachable and drinkable. But with this, we definitely had aging in mind as well. So I'm glad. So yeah, both these wines, I think, especially as we went through our tours, come back to them tomorrow. They like start to open up even more. So
For
definitely
sure.
splashing. We would decant, sometimes double decant. They're built to age, and they really tend to open up with a little bit of air.
Yeah. Is the small lot more aimed at on premise or specialty shops, a combination of both?
Yeah, so on mostly on premise, definitely not to any of the big retailers. 900 six packs for the world is pretty tiny. So this wine is a little over half, 56% from Morrisoli, which is Rutherford Bench. So I don't know
Really
if you,
super
if you,
aromatic, this wine.
yeah, it's pretty powerful. So Morrisoli is just south of Inglenook. It's contiguous across the street from Inglenook, Scarecrow, and Phelps Manley Lane. So it's in a great location. So right in the heart of the best area of the Rutherford Bench. And interestingly, that's benchland valley floor where the other component is from the mountains, but the that part of the valley floor with the gravelly soils is adding most of the tannin, darker fruit. It's really, really backward. And I, for my own brand and other brands, have made pure Morrisoli, and it's more challenging to tame the tannins in that than fruit from Spring Mountain or Diamond Mountain. It's just really, really powerful. So then the other vineyard is called Sage Ridge, and it's what used to be part of Pat Coletto's property on the east side of the valley, just north of Sage Canyon. So it's just north of Pritchard Hill. So there's Pritchard Hill, then there's Little Canyon, then you come to where he has. I mean, the brand, he sold the brand, but Judy Jordan bought half of the vineyard. So she has a company called Capra, where most of the grapes are sold to other vintners, and then she gives a bunch of the proceeds to women going into grape growing and winemaking. So it's a great,
Cool.
philanthropical gesture. So that vineyard has only been available for sale for a few years because it was part of Coletto's property, but I was lucky to get in there. And so it's, mountain fruit, steep hillsides, but it's actually much softer than the Morrisoli, which doesn't seem to make sense. But I've had
Yeah.
experience in the hills east of Oakville with the same thing, where the wines taste more like Stag's Leap with a more lush character than other mountain areas like Hell Mountain. So it's you wouldn't expect that to happen, but the blend of the two, I think, has the best of both worlds. Morrisoli is the Iron Fist and the Velvet Glove, and then the Sage Ridge is it's not quite red fruit because we got it like pretty ripe, so it's kind of in between red and blue, but has this lushness and this great perfume that the two together um, still really powerful, but it makes it a more complete wine and just more components than either one of them separately.
You mentioned your brand a couple times. What is your brand?
Very creative name. It's called Aiken.
Oh,
So
okay.
I I was 27 years at BV and left in 2009 to start my own brand and to start consulting. I had a couple of clients. Um, so I was making Pinot from anywhere but Napa because we had at BV, we had 300 acres in Carneros. And in the 80s, before replanting due to phylloxera, so with specific rootstocks and upright trellising and pulling leaves, it was a pretty cool region, and the wines, tasted like cool climate wines. But once we changed all of the farming parameters, and maybe global warming had something to do with it, but I think that's pretty insignificant. It was really upright trellising, less vigorous rootstocks, all of these clones that didn't have green characters. I think Carneros to me became a warmer climate than the style of wine I was striving to make. So for my own brand, I've made Pinot Noir from Sonoma Mountain, Green Valley towards Occidental, which is getting pretty close to the coast. And then a friend of mine has a vineyard down in Santa Rita Hills. So making Pinot from various parts of the state, and then Cabernet from Rutherford, from Morrisoli. So the vineyard that makes up over half of the Scattered Peaks. And then my Oakville Cabernet from Oakville Ranch, which is in the hills east of Oakville, just below Stagecoach and above Dallaval. So 900,000 feet. So it's definitely hillside fruit, but it has, like I was saying, this lushness that's more like Stag's Leap, which is just south of it, than the mountain fruit I get from for other brands from Diamond Mountain or Hell Mountain. So that's where I've been sourcing my fruit through the years. But I love both of the vineyards. So with 2018, which we're bottling in a couple months, I've gotten the team at Scattered Peaks to agree to do single vineyard bottlings. So we'll have two distinct different wines. I love the combination of the two in this wine, but I think it's appropriate at that price point to really showcase a vineyard. And both of these are world-class vineyards. And as we go forward, hopefully in future years, when the economy is back to normal, we can add other great vineyards to the collection.